Oops. Wrong button. And with that, folks, let's get started. It is Wednesday night. Welcome to our 12th show of the season. It is week 8 tomorrow, the final frontier. This is the last regular season game, the last regular season game night. After that, on Monday, I believe it is, there will be the semifinals, and the big finals, I believe, is on Friday, along with, I think, the All-Star game, too. So lots of stuff going on. Big week next week, big week this week, big games tomorrow. Excuse me. Oh, frog in my throat. Lots of stuff on the line for these different teams. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. We have a big announcements coming up with the big selection for the Prospect Bowl, the big selection. You guys have voted. We got a great turnout, a little bit better than last year, which is great to see. Keep on rocking that. Keep on, doing what you guys are all doing in the community, having a lot of fun. Really amazing to see that. So, anyways, I'm here. So you might have, if you're part of the Discord server, you've seen that Daniel is unable to make it tonight. He chose being part of a basketball game instead of being here tonight. That's all right. He's he doesn't have control over that, and he's really getting back into playing basketball, something that he really enjoys. So that's awesome. We'll see what is in store for him next week and the week after. But we've only got 2 more shows left. That's exciting. So we've got next week on Thursday. We'll wrap up with a little pre-draft, post Prospect Bowl, pre-championship game kind of thing going on, and then we've got one final show after the draft as well. But that's next week. That's later. That's not tonight. So what tonight? We've got Derek Meerkat. Thank you for joining us tonight, being here in Daniel's stead. Moving, I see like you two shifting up. That's awesome. Love to see it. Great having you.
Should I chug some maple syrup in honor of him not being here today?
Absolutely. I expect a full body bath later tonight. That sounded awkward. Please don't clip that. Okay. All right. Also, we've got Johnny Reno. Thanks for joining us again this week, Johnny. Really appreciate you being here with us.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I'm sure Daniel's out there sinking some threes, so good luck to him.
Yeah, I'm not. I have to ask him, like, what kind of position does he play? He's a lot taller than me. I'm 5'9", and I think I would be a better like shooting forward or a point guard kind of thing. But I think he might. I don't know. Based on his like 6'4" build, he might be a center. I'm not sure. Boxing people out, trying to teach my 11-year-old daughter some of these skills and things, and so get her butt moving, boxing me out. But we'll see. Anyways, we have a lot of show tonight. Let's get to it. First thing we want to do is we've got, as we do every week, most weeks anyways, we have a minor league player that we get to talk to. I always love getting to be able to just have a chat, shooting the ish with someone a little bit. Tonight is no different. We have with us someone I know a little bit myself, but I'd love to share a little bit more with about him with you all viewers, whether that's live or recorded later on. But we've got the Madison Lynx tight end Ron Haines. Ron, are you here?
Yes, sir. I'm here. Hi, Coach.
Awesome. Great to have you here. It's great to put a voice to the name or the profile picture kind of thing. Great having you here tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I've been watching your show as a new person to SFL. I'm trying to take it all in, and I'm having a blast. I just can't express how much fun I've been having here the last few months.
That is great to hear. Love to hear that. So tell us, who is Ron Haines? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Ohio, so I'm a Buckeye fan.
Okay.
And joined the Marine Corps in 1977, and I retired in 1998. I moved to Missouri. I met my wife while I was in the Marine Corps. She was a Marine as well.
Cool.
And we moved out here to Central Missouri. That's where she's from. And went to work for the state. Retired as a data center supervisor. Just recently retired from that about a year ago. And so, in my spare time, I've gotten into videography. I film a lot of live sports for high school events, football primarily. And then I go and edit all that on a computer at home, and I put it out on a YouTube channel.
Very cool. You've shared some of those with me. I think even in the minor league fights and insights server, you might have even shared it as well. Really great stuff. I love seeing, especially in the game, seeing the I think it might be RH Productions or something like that. Seeing your profile name come up in the chat when you're hyping up the links and things. It's really
Yeah,
great to
yeah,
see.
yeah. Yeah, it's RH Video Production. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's out on
Cool.
YouTube.
So if you see that, that's Ron. That's Ron. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You said you've been here for about a few months now. I think it was a little bit before the season started, but it might have even been like, gosh, it might have been even February. Was it as early as February?
Actually, it was a tail end of January this year.
Okay. I was going to say,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit
I
about it.
Sure, yeah. So I got Direct TV, and I was just channel surfing one day looking for something, and anyways, I ran across the NXT. Is that I think that's what it's called, right?
Yep.
NXT.
NXT. Yep. Next Level Sports
And
or something like that.
Next Level Sports, yeah. And I watched the game, and then I kind of went away, and I came back later, and there was like two more. I think next week, the following week, there was like two games on. So I watched those, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know. And so I immediately went out to the website and started, checking it out, and I told my wife, I said, man, this is something I got to do aside from videoing, football season's not going on right now. So and I'm so glad I made the jump, and I went straight pro right from the beginning, and I'm glad I did. And
Don't have to.
yeah, so the journey, what's that?
You don't have to worry about your subscription changing or anything, and it's an extra what, $1.50, $2 a month. I think I might have done the same thing. I'm on like a monthly pro subscription, easy to do. Don't have to think about it recurring. So
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So then I joined the league, and I got put on Madison's team. I guess that was my turn. That was the way it works out.
mhm.
And I feel very fortunate. I really have been. And actually, I can't thank you enough. I mean, as an ambassador of SFL, to be there as a front man, and just, I mean, right from the beginning, I mean, you gave us a spreadsheet. You talked about progression and the importance of it, and how to follow this thing. And I got to tell you, of all the interviews I've had, everybody just raves about the build. Even though I'm a rookie and I've only been at this, and I couldn't have done that without you and the guy, everybody else with the experience out here.
Mhm.
I appreciate all that y'all do.
That's it's great. Thank you for that. It's just I love being able to give back to the people. You don't learn anything by being quiet. So it's all about sharing and giving back to those coming up. And I got the same thing. For the most part when I was in my SFLN journey and asking questions and trying to understand what this is like and if I do this, what happens? If I do that, what happens? And understanding, piecing it all together. And there's a lot to learn. Like, I know you took up learning stats. Not stats, scouting. Use the video, and you've been using some of the assets that we provided and things. You've been doing a great job. You've been chipping away at it, trying to learn, and it's been great seeing the passion that you've been putting in to it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did. I watched your video, and actually, it was two other guys on the squad, John Fowler and Young Vod. We all got together, created our own chat channel, and we talked about scouting, and we talked about what we're doing and how to do it. And it was just a lot of fun. So it was a collaborative issue, or effort on all of our parts, and it's just great to put it out there. I hope you guys use it, the coaches. I mean, uh,
Yep.
and because it's great as a rookie to be able to see that, because I don't own the sim myself. So to get to see the playbooks and see the plays that are called, and then you learn and you watch the replays. And sometimes I had to watch a play 5 or 6 times to figure out
Yeah.
what was going on. And then you throw in the thing where I guess you can move players around, right? I don't
There's
know. It's just like, like you're looking for number 16, and all of a sudden he's on maybe not in the wide receiver slot anymore. I just love it. The depth of it is just amazing.
Yeah, I know, in the Google Drive that we have that has all the different plays, there's thousands of them out there. And to think that a team needs to come up with minimum 70 plays for the game book and maximum 150, there's so many other combinations, so there's so every game is so dynamic, and the same type of thing goes for defense. You know what you have been doing with providing us the drive summary, and then like the report that has which plays were called and how often and how productive they were. That's like so valuable information. So you've been scouting offense, which I have a lot more experience in. Defense is a totally another nut to crack. It's harder to see because you don't see as much of them, or there's not like straight up routes that are shown. They just go to their circles of zone coverage or things, and I think that's still something that I'm sort of capturing up and training myself up and doing. But so scouting offense, passing that off for Madison, then to Jaden Swift to analyze, take a look at, and see what the teams have been playing and how successful they've been doing, and if a play is really successful, they're probably going to want to try to run that again against us the next week. So what do you do from a defensive game plan to counteract that? Mitigate the risk of them doing another, getting first downs or a touchdown kind of thing on that. So it's super valuable. I'm curious. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask another question, but if you got something else to say, feel free.
Well, it's just with everything you've been saying, and for all of y'all that's been in this sim for a while, uh, it's one of the things I love about it, and I'm learning about it. It's just like I said, I used this term before, the depth of it, and I can scouting and following a team. Maybe somebody you're going to be playing against. Maybe scout multiple games.
Exactly.
And find tendencies and trait. What are they doing? What works for them.
Yeah.
What are other teams doing to shut down and down and out? What are they doing across the middle? And I just love this stuff, man. It's cool.
And you're gonna love it even more once you get to the pro level too. Like so, you've got owners who are also coaches that have been doing this for seasons upon seasons, and their mentality or the way that they play might slowly evolve a little bit over time, right? But they still are the same person that's making these decisions. And so if you start to understand or look back at a season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons of games and start to pull together like how do I get into the head of this play caller, and so I even know what they might be trying to do against a team like us. You know what I mean? There's like you said, it is so deep, and it's the fun part of all of this, right? And then you get to see it all play out on the field, for better or worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious. Tell me about. Is there a single favorite moment that you might have had over the last like 4 or 5 months that you've been part of the league? God, yeah, 5 months. Gosh, that stands out to you as like this is something, a highlight that I remember, or an awesome moment that I'm sort of going to capture away in like a mental like time capsule that I remember. Is there anything like that?
I think my first catch and hearing my name for the first time on a live broadcast. My wife. I had to go play it again on the replay. I said, "Hey, I think my wife, hey, look, that's me, man." And of course, she gave me the look. Like, okay.
Yeah, many of us know that look. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this? Why?
But no, exactly. No, but honestly, I think our team pulling together last week, and I think we shocked everybody and we beat Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been pretty brutal. I ain't gonna lie, but we did that, and in the locker room, everybody, dude. I mean, it's like there's a core of us in there, and and you're 0-3, 0-5, 0-6, and we hung together. Everybody's kept motivating each other, encouraging each other, and doggone it, it paid off. So we're not gonna go over.
Yeah, that's awesome. Derek, did you have any questions for Ron at all?
So I was looking at the pro rosters before this, and I saw that one team had a tight end number 1 spot. My question for you, Ron, is what do you think makes you stand out about from all the other tight ends that could make you possibly get that number 1 spot?
Oh, that's a good question, Derek. I think the progression that I have thus far I think it's pretty, from what I've been getting from other, and through the interviews, is that's pretty balanced. And I think that will help me stand out moving forward. And I will say as well, in some of the interviews that I've had, I've expressed to all of them that I'm willing to fill the role that they need, with the understanding that that I'm a rookie, and as I progress, other avenues are going to open up for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that answers your question, Derek.
It does. And I will say that you learning things outside of what you need to learn is also that's a big thing.
And hearing the
Thank you.
passion coming through right now too, just like and how easy it is to talk to you. I mean, that's your personality and the type of person you are. Easygoing, easy to get along with. Willing to do what's needed for the team. Team player, hype man. All that kind of stuff. Are all just like that. The like chocolate syrup and sprinkles and Cool Whip and cherries on top of an already awesome ice cream sundae. So
You make me hungry, Axel.
that's my job.
Yeah.
It's my job, Derek. Johnny, did you have any questions at all for Ron?
Yeah, just one. And I was going to answer Derek's question when he asked Ron that question, but um, you know, I'm sure most tight ends or some could dig into it, but him knowing scouting and practicing it is probably one of the um, leading things that put him above other tight ends. But statistically speaking, even as a first-year tight end, you're ranked number 3 in passing yards. You have 14 receptions for 182 yards. Of course, stats aren't everything, but so far it looks like you've had a really good season. But leading into that, I noticed the one tight end one spot open, but there's 8 tight ends currently in the minors, and there's a lot of teams that love to run the tight end two um, spot. So there's 13 of those currently open. So I wouldn't be surprised if every tight end gets drafted. But with that being said, leading into your talks with some of the owners and GMs leading up to the draft, how have those conversations gone? I'm sure you being into scouting and mentioning that to them, I'm sure they're all drooling over that fact. But how have those conversations gone with the owners and GMs?
Sure, Johnny. Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to have 9 interviews, and across the board, uh, when it comes down to tight end position, it comes down to like tight end 2, even tight end 3, and would I be willing to do that? And on every case, I told everybody, absolutely, I'll be able to. I'd be more than happy to do that. Uh, I appreciate you, sharing my stats out there. I'm happy about it. But honestly, when I look at a replay, I look at how my guy blocks, and I get upset a couple times. Like even in the last game where I missed a block, and Marcus got hit in the backfield. And so I look at my profile. Okay, what do I got to do? I got to get stronger. So I look at things like that as well. And so at this point, I just want to progress, continue to get better. I've looked at other guys and other linebackers out there in the league to see what their profiles look like. So I'm kind of getting a better picture for where I need to go, so that I can fit in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I even remember I love chatting with you guys that I've seen in the Gen chats, being more social. And I remember you sharing the videos that you do with the high school games. I think I even watched one of your YouTube videos, so that's awesome. But yeah, congrats in the future, and the draft will be fun. I've no doubt we'll hear your name called.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, and so Ron, that wraps up my questions, and then we went through the other two. And is there anything that you'd like to share to any GMs, owners? Any shout outs to anybody, any players or colleagues out there? Any last sort of final words for you?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna shout out to our defense. Our defense. Jobo McSlim, Mike Mello, Anthony Barr are on the line, man. You guys kill it. John Fowler, Matthew at the linebacker spots. You guys are awesome. our cornerbacks, Maverick, White, safeties, Vaught, Lama, and our strong safeties, Horace and Jackson, all of them. I appreciate the guys that are two-way players that come into the locker room and they spend time with us rookies, they give us the ropes, and the quarterback, I mean, Xander, I can't say enough about, his participation in the locker room as well. He's private chatted me before, kept me motivated at times. And so I just want to thank all those guys. And because you know what, we're all brothers here, sisters possibly, I think. And, we're all teammates, and we're going to progress on down the road. And I'm just happy to have met them all.
That's awesome. Appreciate you coming on here, Ron, and giving us a little piece of yourself, and getting us excited to see you the great things that are ahead for you.
All right, hey, hoorah, guys! That's what we say in the Marine Corps. Hoorah!
Hoorah! Cool. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Ron. All right. As always fun. Super great guy. Man. I don't have enough to say about him. He said it all. Yeah. If you haven't watched it, rewind back and watch that if you haven't. If you're tuning in on the recording. Anyways, appreciate him coming on. We've got some other stuff coming up. What else do we have up? We have this thing called the Prospect Bowl coming up. We've got selections. You guys have voted. We had a total. So last year we had 99 total votes. This year we had 106 votes. So we beat that by, I don't know, what is that, 6 or 7%, something like that, right? Quick math. I don't know. It's pretty close. I think that would work pretty well. So how this is divided up, we've got the 4 teams on one side representing the west side. We've got the 4 teams on the east side representing their division, their side, geographically. And we're just going to walk through progressively through. We're going to start with from quarterback through offensive line, then defensive line, all the way through the safeties, and end with the kickers. So we're going to go through step by step and announce who was selected and what position they'll be playing, what percentage they have. We don't go through everybody's percentages, but we have those that have been selected. So we're going to start. I don't know if anybody wants to do a drum roll. Making my camera shake. Anyways, so for quarterback for the Prospect Bowl, what you guys voted in, we have for the West, Jordan Sipe with 39% of the vote as quarterback 1, and then backing him up at quarterback 2, we have Ty Patak with 36% of the vote on the West. On the East, we've got QB1 Xander Moon with 40% of the vote, and then following him is Cyrus Jive with 24% of the vote. So those are our quarterbacks. Are there any surprises here, Johnny or Derek? Does this sort of fall in line with what you maybe some performance or vocalness or visibility to the different roles or the different players?
It looks about right. I honestly, the Sipe and Patak percentage is about exactly what I thought it was going to be. Close.
Just inching. I mean, so with 106 players or people voting, that 36%, 39%, that's less than a handful of votes difference between the two of them.
Yep.
And then Xander Moon, both Xander and Jordan, we've seen some things back and forth, but they're pretty much at that same level. However you think about what is going on, whatever that situation is, they're coming out strong and putting a name for themselves out there and on the cusp of each other. And then we've got Cyrus Jive coming in, I don't know if sneaking in is the right word, but coming in and sort of muscling his way in there and making a name for himself as well.
It's about what I thought for the East too, because looking at the quarterback stats, I hate to say this, but the East doesn't look as good as the West.
Stats wise, pretty is what you're.
Yes. So I figured Xander Moon would be number 1 because he's the most visual. I mean, you see him more in chats, and then I figured it would kind of be a decent sized drop off like that percentage is.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is totally superfluous and anyways, do you think the fact that Jordan Sipe and Ty Patak have been on our show and were interviewed maybe has a play into how far they've gotten or what their votes were.
Honestly, I think it probably does, because I think the people that are more involved in the SFLM are probably in your chat. I mean, so those are the guys that are going to be visible.
True.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's what I was going to say. I think when you look at it, stats mean nothing when it comes to this. But you have on the West, you have the winningest quarterback in the league, and then on the East, you have the team that has, I think, have a single win now. But it's all about being visible and being in the chats, and people see that. And when I look at these names, that's who I see.
Mm-hmm. Having gone through and building out all these graphics for these, I do have to say I feel like it's people could say that this is simply a popularity contest. I would disagree that there may be some votes and may be part of that, but I think there's some other things. Is it how strong they are of a leader for their team? Because if you're a good leader in your team, you might by de facto have what 18 votes for the other teammates in your team, perhaps, right? Maybe you get votes by your coaches and your coaching staff, or the connections that you've made based simply on who you are and the type of leader. And it doesn't necessarily even need to ripple out into Gen Chat or SFLM Gen Chat or shows like this either. And we'll probably see that coming up as well. That
also, you might. Sorry.
No, go for it. I'll let you go.
I'll tell you might also see that having a cool name also helps.
Cool. That's funny. I love that. All right, so that's the quarterback, and as we go through, I'd love to those that are watching online, watching live. I'm curious to know, is this sort of how you'd expect it to go? Do you think someone was dissed or missed as we go through these? So feel free to shout people out, or congratulate. Let's hype people up. Say congratulations to even be on the ballot. Whatever. This is a community. We're wanting to be supportive of people and wanting to see them. This is ultimately supposed to be a fun community building experience kind of thing. So that's feel free to do some of that. All right, but without further ado, let's get to the running backs. All right, so for running backs, we have, for the West, representing the West, we have Jay-Z Bacon with 42% of the vote, and then following up with Logan Lee with 30% of the vote. And then on the opposite side, on the East side, we've got Randy Squarebush with 37%, and then Marcus Duncan with 27%. We have, for this example, we've got two-way players, getting that number one. As I was doing these graphics, I was revising last season's graphics for these. Randy Squarebush went, I believe, from like 55% down to 37%. And Marcus Duncan rose up a bit here as well. So it's sort of a leveling out too. I think that did have an effect on different players, on how people might have voted as well. And you might see that in some of the future voting in different positions as well. Derek, any thoughts on these picks?
Well, I mean, first off, it's clear with this that not everyone loves bacon. Only 42% of people love bacon. Also, I think part of what this shows and what you just mentioned with Squarebush is that he's a two-way player this year or this season. Last season he wasn't, and while he has dominated a few games this year, he hasn't dominated as much as he did last year. As somebody who played on his team, I saw how many times he dominated last year, and it's interesting to know that he hasn't played as well as a two-way player than he did last year as a non-two-way player.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, his stats, his value and progression is frozen from the end of last season. So pretty much he hasn't progressed at all, but he hasn't been used as well or as often to as much success as he was last year. That's an interesting call out. Johnny, do you have any thoughts or feedback on how this vote went?
I mean, I think Jay-Z Bacon and Randy Squarebush, them both being two-way players, I think statistically speaking, they're at the top of the league, and I'm sure in their locker rooms they're leaders. So I totally understand that. I do love to see the Logan Lee and Marcus Duncan picks. Logan Lee is actually the number 2 running back as far as total yards this season, so he's had a great season. And Marcus Duncan, number 5, not too far behind him. So those are great picks.
Yeah, I feel like Duncan's been uh, on the incline the last couple weeks. Being able to get him moving a little bit from earlier on the first couple weeks of the season. I also want to take this time quick to mention how the game is going to play out as well. I've pulled together. It's going to be the same playbooks that we used last season. Both teams are going to use the same playbooks. I've selected plays that run the gambit so that we try to get as everybody involved. I'll also be doing specific substitutions or player substitutions based on formation, so that half of the formations it'll be like Jay-Z Bacon will be the running back, the other half Logan Lee, and vice versa. And same with wide receivers. I'll be swapping them out so that one formation you might have someone be wide receiver number 1, another formation wide receiver number 4, and the 4 becomes 1 or 2. So really getting everybody a chance to be out there and playing as much equal play time as we can, and then we again both teams being equal on the playbook side, get them out there and set them loose and see how the game progresses, and everybody getting a chance to be out there having fun representing their side. All right, excuse me. So we've got fullbacks now, so we'll move on to that. So for West, we've got Toriano Rivera representing the West, and for East, we've got Scott Powell. Toriano Rivera got 40% of the vote. Scott Powell got 42. So it's the two of them out there that'll be blocking, maybe running, maybe he's doing some fullback runs in there as well. I don't think a lot of surprise. I think actually, I don't know if Toriano Rivera got it last season. I know Scott Powell, I don't think did. And I know I remember Ethan making a really big case trying to get him drafted last season. I'm sure he'll go this season. Really a pretty powerful fullback out there. Derek or Johnny, do you have any thoughts on the selection here?
Just one of those things where I like to see the fullbacks get a little bit of spotlight. They don't always get the spotlight they deserve.
Yep.
But I mean, this is about. These are the two guys I figured would be there.
And being able to then block, but for different running backs, Scott Powell, I think, is from Lexington, being able to block for Squarebush and Duncan. Again, just like this amalgamation of players coming together and forming a new hybrid super team on both sides. All right. So for wide receivers, we have the selection was T to Queen, trumping everybody else with 33% of the vote, followed up by Jay Viper with 24%, TT Crystal with 9%, and Lottie Lou with 7%. So here we see, two fresh, fresh, brand new this season, T to Queen, pulling away with doing really great stuff in Tacoma. Jay Viper, I believe, on Lincoln. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know if he's Lincoln? I think he's from Lincoln. Either Lincoln or maybe some other.
I'll find out right now.
Okay. And then followed up.
Not Lincoln.
Not Lincoln. All right. And then TT Crystal and Lottie Lou, both two-way players coming in, with under 10% of the vote, representing the West there. Following that up, again, TT Queen really taking over that West side. On the East side, we've got Arain Darby with 18%, Reggio De Niro with 13%, Quag Mam with 10% of the vote, and then followed up finally with Adrian Ellis with 8% of the vote. So pretty tight pickings over on the East side for that. Derek or Johnny, any thoughts on these wide receiver selections?
Well, first of all, it's such a cool story to me that when we had T on the show, she mentioned how she knew nothing about football really when she joined, and to see her on Twitter, to see her in chats, and to see her get into it, she deserves that top spot.
She's been working 100%. It hard, yeah.
She has. She's been putting a lot of work. And so on the East, a strange thing I noticed was that only 2 teams are represented over there. Just Annapolis and Madison.
That is fascinating.
Yep.
They're pounding the pavement, getting the vote out for their teams.
Yeah.
Johnny, any thoughts on these?
No, that's actually what I was going to say. I would be willing to bet that a lot of these players had a lot of team support. And I know y'all talked about T, but I had the pleasure of being in the locker room with her in Tacoma, and she's so positive all the time. She's very active, whether it's in the Tacoma locker room or the Gen Chat. Just a great person to have in the league, and whoever snags her in the draft is going to get a steal. She's awesome.
Yep, definitely. Top notch, definitely. And like you said, Derek, seeing her on Twitter, just sort of opening up and replying, just being, just being active. And that's just a great, being able to sort of go back and forth and replying to tweets that I put out or, the legend puts out or other things. Just, getting your fingers dirty with talking with different people. It's great to see.
And as I don't get a lot of likes for my tweets, but I do notice that 99% of them she likes, and I have to thank her. I have to thank her for that. It makes me feel validated. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so we'll move on now to the tight ends. So here we see the West. DJ Bandit with 44% will be representing with the number 1 spot, followed up by Christian Bakajalapi. Bakajalapi. Sorry, I think I did it okay. 25% of the vote. And then on the East, we've got Dusty Work from Ottawa with 34%. And then this guy, Ron Haines, I heard he's a pretty cool cat. Speaking of cats, he's from the Lynx. I didn't plan that, anyways. Okay, 29% from the vote as well. So again, pretty high up there. 5% difference between Dusty and Ron. A little bit more between DJ Bandit and Christian. Great seeing, again, we've got starting off with two-way players, hoping, are they going to find the starting positions versus being backups that they were last year, help with this type of help and the play that they did in the minor leagues, and then followed up with 2 fresh players, Christian and Ron, fresh this season. Christian actually, I think, fresh even just in the last 4 weeks, I think, joining just before the midway season or midway point of the season. Derek or Johnny, any thoughts on these selections?
So I think next season I'm gonna only pick players with names that are hard for you to pronounce. So that's just more interesting.
I appreciate it.
But no, this is also about what I expected. I was pretty surprised by Christian. I'm guessing that might have a lot to do with team participation in this, because to go from being that new to getting 25%, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, and 25% is like, with the 106 players, you're at 27 votes. That's pretty decent. Yeah, 27 people backing your campaign. Johnny, any thoughts?
Christian's another player in the Tacoma locker room that I don't think you see him in the SFLm Gen Chat as much, but he's another one that's really active in the Tacoma locker room, super positive. I mean, him and T are there every single day, so it honestly doesn't surprise me since I know him. But yeah, I think it's a great pick. I'm sure he had every single player in Tacoma vote for him. Awesome. And then Ron Haines, like you said, we just met. Great dude. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's there.
Absolutely. Cool. All right, so we're going to get to offensive linemen. There's not a lot. So, I mean, we've got 5 on each team to fill. We don't have that many linemen to fill out there. But we did still capture the votes, and they're out there. They're representing their position, whether that's guard or tackle or center. So for the offensive linemen, this is how it shapes up. So on the West, we've got DeBrickashaw Molino with 50% of the votes. So that's, again, 53 votes. That's solid. Phoebe Collins coming up there, sneaking up with 33% of the vote. And then following up with Frank Burks, I believe he's on Tacoma as well in the offensive line. So you've got left tackle, right tackle, and left guard represented, how they'll be out there in the line. On the East, we've got Jamarcus Candy with 53% of the vote, followed up with 40% is Jay Warren, and then Damian Robichaud with 7% of the vote at center. So again, we've got that left side, so center guard and tackle, totally covered. on that side. And that might be the better side to run for the East. We'll see how that plays out. Do you think that's going to play a factor? Do you think in how these teams run? Are they going to have better success? Do you think having everybody left tackle, left guard, and center on the East is going to be better than left tackle, right tackle, and a guard? Or do you think it might be having a tackle on both sides is going to be beneficial if they can go either way and have that tackle sort of lock down that side?
I mean, I think the East would probably run more to the left. It would make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at this, I think we got DeBrickashaw is a case of just having a fantastic name, and Candy's a great guy. He was on Annapolis last year, and before he left and came back, and he was a solid dude. I'm happy to see him up there.
Cool. And Johnny, any thoughts on these picks?
Man, I'm just glad to see so many offensive linemen. I think they're really underappreciated. They mean so much to every team. But I really am excited to watch the prospect bowl and see the running game. I think all running backs are going to have a game with 3 offensive linemen, regardless of center or tackle guard. It'll be fun to watch.
But on the opposite, you've got a solid. We'll get to that in just a second with solid defensive tackles and defensive ends there as well. We'll see. That'll be that again. It's bound to be a battle out there, which should definitely be a fun time. So we'll move on to to the defensive line. We'll go with the defensive tackles first. So defensive tackles on the West, no big concern here. We've got Neil Rivers really representing West pretty high with 57% of the vote, followed up by Luis. I think I spelled that wrong. Sorry, Mr. Negron. With 16%, I think I swapped the I and the U. I think it's Luis Negron. Sorry about that. Following up Neil on the West. And on the East, we've got Forrest Dalton. He's having an amazing season this year so far, followed up by Jobu McSlim. Pretty tight comparison there, 38% versus 34% of the vote. With Dalton just edging out McSlim there. I'm sure I'm channeling my inner Daniels, like one of the best names in football in the minor league, Jobu McSlim. Being in Madison, hearing him and seeing him in the locker room, great person as well. Things. So Derek or Johnny, any thoughts on these defensive tackles?
Well, I think Forrest Dalton's great season. He barely edged out Jobu. I mean, how could you not vote for that name? I mean, especially if you're somebody who maybe doesn't watch as many games and you're looking like, oh, here's this name right here. That's who I'm voting for. But on the West side, Neil is really, people see him a lot. I mean, he's in Jazz. I've seen him talk quite a bit. And I think, and I don't know that a lot of the other defensive tackles in the West are as active. So I think that's why his percentage is so high.
Yeah, pretty big backing there with 60 people voting for him roughly. Johnny, your thoughts on this?
I totally agree. I think Neil being a little more visible, but Neil and Lewis, statistically speaking, both that's 2 solid defensive tackles. Forrest Dalton also, he has 12.5 sacks this season. So, I mean, regardless of visibility, his stats are crazy. I don't even know what the record is, but 12.5 is up there, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's half of the defensive line. That's the inside part. Let's get to the outside, the defensive ends. So for the West, we've got Kratos Maximus with 36% of the vote, followed up by Tacoma's Darius Hawkins with 26% of the vote. And on the East, we've got Mike Mello from the Lynx with 35%, followed up with Rocco Rossi with 21%. Johnny, what is your take on these picks here?
Well, I see another Madison Lynx in there. I'm thinking the whole Madison locker room teamed up and all voted for the same person.
We didn't put any criteria on how to vote. It's ultimately up to them. So you can't shame them at all.
I'm just joking. Melo's had a great season. Darius
Mhm.
Hawkins is another one I know from the Tacoma locker room. He's another active guy. I guess Tacoma did the same thing, but all these guys deserve it. Great picks.
Yeah, yeah. I remember Darius was on our show maybe week 4 or so. Being from, gosh, is he from Next Level or
Oh, it
uh,
was
what one of the other places? One of our sponsor people,
okay.
our external support people. He saw it and he's like he wanted to be join in. It's great person. If you missed that episode, go check it out. It's a great interview with Darius. Really enjoyed getting to know him. Derek, do you have any thoughts on how do you know much about Kratos Maximus? How's he been doing?
All I do know is if anybody's watching this that isn't in the league right now, you got to take names that are gonna get you on the board, man.
I knew that's where that was going.
It'd be funny to have somebody create their player just to try to get on this. Like, pick me is their name or something like that. I don't know.
Just have your last name be Prospect Bowl, and I mean,
There you go. The secret's out. How do you game the system in some way? All right.
Just wait till we get to the linebackers.
That, we'll see how we did there. Maybe I'll have to go and ask you both to read some of them off. All right. So for the inside linebackers, so we have 2 inside linebackers, 2 outside linebackers. Part of the defense is going to be we're going to be doing some 3-4 as well as some 4-3. So we can get a variety of players out there. Obviously, we'll have the base packages, dime packages, nickel packages. Maybe we even throw in a little bit of 4-4, a bear package out there for some of you out for fun. Just to have, again, it's not win lose per se. It's about having fun during the game and seeing what we all play with. So inside linebackers, we've got for the West, Jason Peace that we actually just talked with. I think it might have been last week with 43% of the vote, and then Matthias Citrion with 28% of the vote on the West, and then on the East we've got Matthew Alvarado with 42% having a great year with the Lynx so far. Juan Mississippi, I believe, with Ottawa backing him up with 28% of the vote. Derek, thoughts on this?
First, I'd like to mention I saw Xander Moon in chat say that Darius Hawkins is from Rare Drop. So,
thank you, Rare Drop.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking at this, I see there's a couple. We just got one 2-way player. There 2, I think.
I think it's Juan Mississippi is the only one that's 2-way.
Okay.
The rest, I know Matthew Alvarado is a second-year minor league player, and then Jason Peace and Matthias Citrion are both, I believe, fresh this season.
I mean, Alvarado, he has been playing phenomenally this year. He definitely deserves that spot, and it's a cool thing. I mean, it just shows how good he's playing that he's beat out a 2-way player, because I feel like we've seen quite a few 2-way players in that number 1 spot. And I don't know that. I feel like part of that isn't so much how well they do or overall, is also the fact that you're in here long enough to be a 2-way player. You probably know more people. So
almost very much like how Matthew Alvarado is a second-year minor league player, probably has been connecting with players and won the championship last year as well with Madison. Right. So having that's pretty big ripples coming out from last season and maybe making his way or helping his case out here as well, his campaign. Johnny, any thoughts on these?
Well, I'm just going statistically speaking, but these 4 linebackers are in the top 5 statistics this year. So they've all had great seasons. They're literally even with each other. So, but not only that, I'm sure every single one of them are leaders in their respective locker rooms. But all 4 of those guys have had great seasons.
As we're doing this, I'm like, wow, these defenses and offenses that we already they're going to be stacked. This is going to be a fun game to watch. All right, so outside linebackers, we're going to have 2 of them here as well. So on the West, we've got Sabo Kanan with 38% of the vote, And then backing him up on the other side is going to be Garrett Evans with 35% of the vote. On the East, we've got Rachel Menner capturing 47% of the vote, backed up by John Fowler with 43% of the vote. Derek, what are your thoughts on these players?
Well, the first thing that jumps out to me is that Madison must have had some great voting because every single time I look at this, there's another Madison player. This is both of these races are super close. We got a matter of a handful of votes between each side. And I mean, Fowler is, he's very, very active, and he's a great team guy, and I'm not surprised to see him up there at all.
His build too. Again, he is, I think, 6'5", 255 or 260. He is a big truck out there, and if you've been watching him in the games as well as we're getting to know him now in Madison locker room, he's been working on his speed and agility, trying to get up there to get exactly where he needs to be, get his player where he needs to be to make those big plays. And so him and Alvarado showed up last week against Lexington pretty well, and I think they're going to have a similar, they'll be that dynamic duo. But Rachel Menner is going to be out there too on the main side, the strong whatever, the starting side, OLB number one. Rachel is, I believe, if I remember right, the wife of Chief Menner. If you are familiar with the person who did the stats, I think he is. So I remember him saying that she got a big kick out of hearing her name during the preseason games. I love indulging people in things. So Rachel Menner, congratulations on getting OLB one there, and the most votes out of everybody there. So congrats there, Derek, Johnny. What are your thoughts on this selection of outside linebackers?
Like Derek said, John Fowler, I'm not surprised to see him there at all. He's an active guy, very positive. Nothing but good things to say about him. Garrett Evans is another fellow Tacoma player that I think is a very positive person. So not surprised to see him there either. I know I mentioned Madison and or a lot of Madison players, but I'm realizing we got a lot of Tacoma players as well. So the camaraderie there must have been, good as far as voting goes.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember right, Sabo Kanan, the name sounds familiar. That he might have been much like Alvarado. This might be his second season. Maybe he joined a little, after the season started last season in the minor leagues. I want to say that he is a second year minor league player out there as well. Probably making a name for himself, and it's great to see him. His stock rising for the draft. The draft is a week and a half away, and this is a great opportunity for these players to these people to sort of get their name out there a little bit further. So, yeah, let's move on then to the cornerbacks, and I've got a little addendum here for this. There's a little update we've got, but. So we'll move this over. So we have for the West CB1 for starting cornerback Skippy Curtis with 30% of the vote, able to get the vote out there and people signing up and clicking on her name to vote her in for cornerback representing the West. Then we've got on the opposite side of the field at CB2, we've got Don Fletcher with 18%. And then an update, Peter Warbonnet, I believe, may have been let go from the league. We can't find his name in the portal. So after we found that out earlier today, after the graphics were already made, but the person that will be taking his place based on the remove him, bubble the next person up, will be Angel Maldonado. I believe he is on Tacoma as well. Is that correct, Johnny?
He is, yes, sir.
So he got, I think, 10.6%, so 11% of the vote coming in there. So he will actually be number CB3 out there. Will be out on the field with the West. On the East, we've got with 22% of the vote, Ty Woodson out there. Then following him up, we've got Tyson Thorne with 19% of the vote. And then finally, we've got Amar Bryant Jr. with 17% of the vote. Derek, do you have any thoughts on or any details on any of these players?
Well, Tyson Thorne was my player to watch for the year, so I'm glad they made it in the Prospect Bowl.
Yep.
It's this actually is about kind of what I thought. There's maybe a couple names in there that are probably pretty close to being on there. Skippy Curtis is really active in chats and game times. I see her talking in the chat all the time during game times,
Yep.
and very visible in the league. So that's 30% is not surprising. And I mean, you're looking at 30% of the vote when there's a lot more corners. So 30% that's a pretty big chunk.
Absolutely. And Johnny, any thoughts on this selection?
Just visibility. I don't know any of these players personally, but I recognize every one of their names. And even Amar Bryant Jr. He's a player that I was just watching in the Gen Chat the other day. So even when these players may think nobody's watching, it was just something I was scrolling through and I saw his name. He was very positive, very engaged in the league. So I'm glad to see his name on there.
Absolutely. Agreed. I feel like you mentioned that. I'm like, I remember seeing like a nice little back and forth, like maybe 2 nights ago or something like that, or last night, something.
Right.
It was, it's just great seeing some of these people again, maybe come out of the woodwork that we haven't seen and starting to converse. And don't be afraid. We're just normal people out here, as imperfect as you. So just feel free to reach out and have fun with us. So that's the cornerbacks. Then we'll finish up with the free safeties. So for free safeties, we've got representing the West, we've got Sam Blotner with 32% of the vote, followed up by Jax Nuke with 22% of the vote. On the East, we've got Young Vaught with Madison with 25% of the vote, followed up with Lexington's Travis Arthur with 18% of the vote. Yeah, sorry, Johnny. The Lynx got another one. Yeah, Sam Blotner out there. I think he's with San Jose, making a name, like doing well. With CHS out there as well, two-way player. Travis Arthur, also two-way player for Tulsa, playing in Lexington out here. Jax Nuke, I believe, is on the Adams because I think there's a tie there. For some reason, I think maybe Rastelli put him over there, but he was also I think he was on the Boise last season. So, anyways, Derek, your thoughts on these selections?
The first thing that stands out to me is that Young Vaught and Red De Niro will be on the same team.
Yes, Annapolis and Madison on the East.
So I don't know if that's a good thing for them. I think they enjoy going to battle against each other, but they still get to be on the same team for once. Because last season, I got to be on the same team as my wife for the first time in the Prospect Bowl, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, you guys both shared. You both were on defense, so you actually were on the field at the same time.
Correct.
At least here, they're one will be on the sideline while the other's out on the field, kind of thing. So they one can shine while the other's sitting back cheering the other on, maybe, or picking fun at the other player. I don't know what the relationship is like, but it's fun. Johnny, your thoughts on these picks?
Another great group of picks. Sam Blotner is one of those players. I think when the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks when we're going over previous games, just statistically speaking, he's somebody I've called out every game. So
absolutely,
he's just an active player on the field. Young Vaught, glad to see him there. Another positive guy. Jax Nuke, I don't know very well, but looking at stats as well, looks like he's technically the number 3 statistically free safety in the league. So he's obviously had a great season as well.
Yep, I believe
he's number one name for a free safety as well.
Absolutely.
Jax is out there in the backfield with the Adams alongside Dante Grimm. So the two of them, locking things down. Grimm, coming over after a season in Louisiana as part of the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Interceptions, I think. A fun player to watch, fun person to see in the social media and tweets and things that he puts together, entertaining. Speaking of that, so in the strong safeties, we've got for the West, Bryant James representing there with 25% of the vote. Dante Graham also with 25% of the vote. And based on that, they actually tied. And so I put the person who would have had the least exposure. So Dante being a two-way, I put him below Brian James. Put Brian James out front and center, starting there. And then on the East, we've got Isabella Blackwell with 38% of the vote, followed up by Arwen Wicker with 20% of the vote. Derek, any thoughts on these picks for strong safety?
So did they have the exact amount of votes? Same exact
They did.
amount of votes?
They did.
Oh,
yep.
wow. That's crazy.
I'm like, how do I decide this? Easy. Like this is meant for showcase people before the draft.
Oh,
this
exactly.
is a perfect spot for it to made my job easy. So
it's definitely cool they did that, and I can't say enough about. I remember last season, Isabella Blackwell, their team beat my team in the playoffs, and
yep.
I was really bummed about it. And at the end of the game, I remember going into or SFLm Gen Chat and being like, good game. And she was very, very, she was a great winner. She said great game to everybody. And she told everybody they played well out there. And I have nothing but great things to say about her.
Absolutely. She's top notch player and super respectful and things. And it's really great to see that kind of player personship out there as well. Johnny, your thoughts on these picks?
Same thing. I was going to give a shout out to Isabella as well on her personality and activity in the locker room. So it's good to hear. But every one of these names I recognize. They're all active, enjoy the league. So I understand every one of these picks.
Awesome. So that leaves us with one final category, and that's the special teams, the kickers. And so we've got some winners here. So they're not winners. This isn't like a game to win. This is some selections here. So representing the West, we've got Mickey. I have to channel my inner Daniel again. Mickey got 74% of the vote. And so he'll be representing the West. And then on the East, we've got Caleb Richards receiving 64% of the vote. So again, both teams will have kickers. Last year, I had the kickers playing double duty with kicker and punter. This year, I'm just going to simply have a generic punter in there, and that these kickers focus on exactly what they're meant to do, kick that ball through the uprights. So should be a fun game. So that wraps up all of the selections. Thank you all, 106 of you for voting. Thank you all, 100 plus of you for being part of this minor league community. Putting yourselves out there, having fun with us. Again, that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Give you guys a little bit of a platform to show off and have a little bit of fun and build some team to team camaraderie between the group of four on the East versus the group of four on the West. Feel free to role play a little bit, before the game next Wednesday. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Actually, I'll talk about that right now. So next Wednesday, the 22nd, at the same time that you guys tuned in tonight, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, right here, we'll be kicking off the Prospect Bowl. And then our regular scheduled minor league fights and insight will be one day later on Thursday, same place, same time, different day. So I'll send out some notices. You'll see that out there, but it should be a lot of fun. That's what we're looking forward to do. I've started building out the roster. It should be a lot of fun. Derek, is there anything that you're looking forward to for this game? Anything, is one team stronger than the other right now that you're seeing? Is there, what are your thoughts on the matchup?
As you may know, I spent a lot of time averaging out these
Yes.
players' overall ratings. So the West average player rating is 68.66, and the East is 70.26.
You said 68.66.
68.66 and then 70.26 for the East.
So about 2.5-ish points difference.
Yep.
Ish.
But I do think that a big thing that pushed East over is obviously Squarebush has 112.
Gotcha.
So he is like I think 14 points above any other player in it. So I definitely think that he helped push that up. I think it's going to be a great game. I think I will have to go with the East
Okay.
because they are. Not only is it the guy has Madison, the team I'm currently helping, but it also has Annapolis, the team I played for. So how can I say otherwise?
Gotcha. And Johnny, do you have anything to the contrary to Derek?
Well,
Right.
I'm not going to make a prediction, but I'll tell you who I'm pulling for.
Sure.
Simply because me being in Tacoma last season, I was also in the Prospect Bowl last season for the West. We were not able to capture a victory, so I'm looking for revenge this season. I'm hoping the West pulls out a win.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think there's so many awesome superstars. For me, what would be a win is everybody having fun and getting out there and seeing people drafted and signed and getting your name out there. So that's me. Is who the real winner is you.
And the coolest thing to me too is the fact that I remember it was cool to see because it was the closest thing you're going to get to a pro game before you get in a pro game because you're having pretty full rosters, a lot of top rated guys and girls, and so it's about the closest thing you're going to get, and it does have that feeling when you're watching it.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll do a little reminder before the end of the show, about the game coming up next week. But first, we've got games tomorrow night. So we're going to jump over there quick to talk about. Actually, first, we're going to jump. We had games last Thursday. So let's talk about those a little bit. All right. So last Thursday, week 7, we saw Albuquerque overtake Lincoln 20-0. Any stats or any thoughts on how that game played out? How did Albuquerque do that to Lincoln? Either of you?
Lincoln did not have much of an offense.
Okay.
It, they tried through the air quite a bit. They honestly didn't. They only ran 12 times, but they tried through the air and they just had 3 picks, and they couldn't get anything going on offense. I mean, but that's not to say that Albuquerque didn't have a good defense. It was they just they Lincoln looked not in this game from the get go.
Gotcha. Any standouts stat wise, Johnny, at all for that game?
Yeah, looking statistically, I was going to say pretty much exactly what Derek just mentioned. Slider did have 3 picks. A couple call outs to players that we just mentioned that were voted in the Prospect Bowl. Dante Grimm had 2 picks, one of them for a pick 6. And then Jackson Nuke, the player that I mentioned earlier as well, he also had a pick. So it did look like offensively Lincoln couldn't get it going. And the Albuquerque defense just kind of fed off of that.
Gotcha. Well, game 2, we saw Lexington head over to Madison. Madison, back from a couple visiting a couple away games, coming in and securing their first win, which is shaking off that goose egg that they were trying to remove. So at least that was a huge win for them, a big roadblock, a big threshold to break through this season for them. So Madison overtaking them 19-7. And if I remember right, it just didn't seem like Christian Pierce could not get their ball running. They were handing it off a fair amount, nor could Chad Moore be able to pass there either. Do either of you two have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, they only had Lexington only had 237 total yards of offense. Xander Moon looked like a completely different quarterback this week. He
pretty clean game. I think he might have had only one interception.
He had 1 pick, which was not. I mean, because I think going into this game, I think he's like 4 or 5 interceptions away from the record. and I was kind of keeping an eye on that. I was like, oh, hopefully that doesn't. But then he came out slinging that ball, and he only got that one pick. He got 2 touchdowns. He played well.
Cool. Johnny, any thoughts on that game? Any
Yeah.
standouts?
No, I totally agree. Moon limited mistakes. I think that made all the difference. He threw for 309 yards. He also spread the ball around as well. Charlie Baker had 6 receptions for 98 yards. Adrian Ellis 8 for 115. So some shout outs there. But yeah, Lexington's offensively just couldn't get going. Chad Moore only completed 47% of his passes. And like y'all mentioned, the running game couldn't get going. So shout out to Madison for their first win.
Cool.
I also like to shout out to Duncan. Duncan, he only had 81 yards, but he had a 3.9 average, which is, it's pretty good average. So.
Mm-hmm. And Johnny, too bad you couldn't say this is. Mark my words.
Yeah, I know. I picked the wrong week.
Right. You're channeling. You're 1 week early, I guess you could say.
That's right. I knew it was coming. It was
there
just
you
a
go.
matter of when.
There you go. Game 3, we saw Annapolis at Tacoma heading west, and Annapolis ended up taking the win. Either of you tell me more about this game? I wasn't able to watch this one.
So I didn't watch it either. I was just looking at some stats, but it looks like Type Attack, he threw the ball, and he threw the ball a lot. 61 attempts, completed 44 of those. Even though he had 400 yards, he did also throw 5 interceptions. So I think the mistakes there, it was a 1-score game. I mean, they lost by 7 points. So that one simple interception probably made all the difference. Squarebush, again, for his stats, had an average game. He had 17 carries for 172 yards and a couple touchdowns. And Struthers looked good as well. He was also 20 for 27, 210 yards and a touchdown. So
okay,
it looked like Annapolis kind of took advantage of Tacoma's mistakes.
Had sort of a balanced offense. It seems a little bit of bit of both running and passing, and doing pretty well at both of them. Enough to keep the defense struggling. I guess you could say. How many yards did Patak have? Did you say, was it 433?
It was 393.
393. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, again, he threw the ball 61 times. That's a lot of passing.
I wonder. Part of me is like, are they trying to get him that yardage record?
I think he's a decent way away from it now. At this point. I think he's going to need to have a pretty huge game. Okay. But if you would indulge me in saying a great name again,
Christian
Tundra Speed.
Oh, Tundra Speed.
No,
okay.
Tundra Speed had 2 picks. So, so I feel like I had to say that name.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the creativeness. Derek, where did you come up with meerkat? Is that something that you and your wife enjoy, meerkats?
Actually, so here's the story of meerkat. So years ago, I was trying to think of a new gamer tag, and because I had one that I made when I was in high school, and it didn't sound very cool anymore. It sounded like one of those things that a name you make up in high school that's just terrible.
Now I need to know it though. Tell me that one.
It was alt punk forever. So it's pretty embarrassing when you're an adult. But so I was trying to think of a good name, and I was like, I was thinking undead something that sounded cool. So I went with undead meerkat because it was the first animal I thought of that was kind of a wacky animal. But then the meerkat with a K, like the actual way you spell it, was taken. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna do it with a C. And that's how I got. And so then when I decided to make a name, I was like, well, I want my first name, so I want that to stay the same. So when people talk to me, I know they're talking to me and not going, oh, that's right, that's me. But then I was like, I'll just have my last name be Meerkat.
Awesome. And Angela seemed on board with that?
Well, yeah, when she joined, she was like, well, I might as well have the same last name as you so people know I'm your wife.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate you indulging me in the history of the meerkats. Yes, that brings us to game number 4. Thank you for San Jose was north of the border in Ottawa and ended up taking away the win. This one I think was a struggle, and was right up to the end of the game. And Johnny or Derek, do you have any information about this game?
I really don't. I kind of focused in on the quarterback play.
Sure.
It looks like between Sipe and Jive, they were pretty even for the most part, completion percentage wise. Jive had 285 yards, Sipe 258. Jive had an extra pick. I mean, it looks like competitively, this was probably the closest game of the week, even statistically speaking. But I guess San Jose was able to pull it out in the end.
Yeah, I want to say, I think I saw that there was it was not great played by San Jose for a little while, and specifically around Sipe for, I think he might even tell you, what is there, 44 minutes in the game. For the first 38 minutes, and the final few minutes was able to then drive down the field and get a touchdown, or I think he got a touchdown to take that lead with only a few, less than a minute left, if I remember right. Derek, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, well, since Daniel's not here this week, I'm gonna have a little grind my gears segment here.
Okay.
And I see you in chat, Jordan. How many times now have you told me that you're gonna get that record, and you have yet to do it? And last week I said get that record on Twitter, and he said I got you. I expect to see it this week. I think he needs 2 to tie it, I believe, and 3 to beat it. I'm sure he'll correct me in chat though. But and he did say that he needs that Patak needs 504 next week to get the record. So
it's possible. It's possible.
Yes, his best was 507 this year. So he's done it once this year already. So
let's see. Well, I mean, that might be, we'll be talking about the games the upcoming right now. So that will be definitely something we can talk about for that. So that wraps up the games last Thursday. Tomorrow night, we've got some more. I broke this up into 2 different sections because I tried to. So Cam, a few days ago, I think maybe it was yesterday, put in the all the details about the implications for wins and losses and who needs what to get into the playoffs. And it didn't quite all make sense to me. I tried to capture it in the graphics here. So game 1 at 7:00 Eastern, we have Annapolis at Madison. Madison home game versus being away in the very. So again, all these teams were the same teams that they played in week 1. So this is their second time. Madison is out of the playoffs based on their record, being 1-6. Annapolis, if they win, they are in. Annapolis is out if they lose, and Lexington wins and Lincoln wins. So if those 2 win, no matter what, I'm sorry, if Annapolis loses, then those 2 would need to win to boot them to keep them out of the playoffs. Derek, who are you hoping for? Are you hoping that Annapolis is able to do it, or do you think Madison will play the spoiler? Here?
I'm no liar, and before week 1, going into the week 1 matchup, these 2 played week 1, and I said I think week 1 Annapolis wins it, but week 8 Madison takes it, and I'm sticking with that prediction.
Okay. Johnny, do you have any thoughts on this game? And do you think Annapolis, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they need help from 2 other teams. Do you think Annapolis gets in?
I think they do. It wouldn't surprise me if Madison played spoiler, but I think Annapolis knows that they have to win to get in. And I think Squarebush probably has himself a game, if not the best game of the season. They march their way into the playoffs.
Gotcha.
I'm having flashbacks from last year when we played Madison week 8. We were 7-0, and we lost.
Yeah, but what was Madison's record at the time?
3-4, I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't great. I don't think they had because a lot of teams were 3-4 and 4-3 last year. I remember.
It was a very similar situation to this year.
Yeah.
So game number 2, we see Ottawa heading to Nebraska to Lincoln to take on the Rattlesnakes. Ottawa, if they lose, they're out, and same with Lincoln. So again, they're playing for keeps. But just winning for either of these two teams does not mean that they make it in either. They lose, they're out. But if they win, Ottawa needs to have Lexington win in order for them to make it in to the playoffs. And Lincoln is out even if they win, unless or if this is where I got confusing because the Cam stuff was a lot about if them not making it. And I was like, wait, well, how do they make it then? So I wasn't sure. It gets confusing. So Lincoln is out if they win, even if they win, if Annapolis wins and Lexington wins. So they're hoping that Lexington loses and they win and Annapolis wins or loses. It's confusing, but they're playing for it. Ultimately, I think try to win. that's the story of it for these teams. For the teams for games number 3 and 4. So for game number 3 at 9:15 Eastern, we've got Tacoma is visiting Lexington. Both tied with their record. Tacoma loses and they're out. Same thing with Lexington. They lose, they're out. If Lexington wins, they're in, and then they affect how the other teams, which ones come in based on their strength of victory. I think of who beat what and who overlaps or shadows the others. Tacoma is out if they win and Albuquerque wins. Tacoma is also out if they win and San Jose wins and Ottawa wins. So looking at the percentage, Tacoma has the hardest hill to climb for those that still have a chance. And I think it said 37.5% is the likelihood that Tacoma doesn't get in, where the other teams are more in like the 12.5 to 20 something percent. So again, just probability based on the 7 games that they've played so far and who they played and who they won or lost to. Thoughts on this game, Tacoma versus Lexington? After Lexington's game last week, Tacoma, did pretty well, but just did not get the win. Derek or Johnny, do you have any thoughts on how this game may play out?
I think Tacoma is going to win this, and
I think so?
I think if they do, I think there's going to be a lot of happy teams because looking through all these teams that say Lexington has to lose for them to get in, I think there's going to be a lot of teams hoping that Lexington loses.
Johnny, your thoughts on Tacoma and versus Lexington?
Well, I said before the season started that I thought Lexington would win it all this year, but I didn't really take into consideration that Lexington would be facing Tacoma in the last week of the season to determine their playoff hopes. So all I'm going to say is I really hope Tacoma pulls out a victory this week. Unfortunately, the scenario, even if they win, it's still an uphill battle. I guess there's just a couple things that could happen, even with the win, to still get in. But with all these teams, all you can do right now is control your own destiny and get the win and hope for the best.
Definitely. The first step to getting in is just win. Try to get that W. That's if you do that, then it's like, okay. If I remember right, Derek, you might even be feeling like remembering last season with Angela. I think Memphis had a lot of the if we win or lose, we had to like wait to see the contingencies of what that's stressful.
They
like
also
watching.
They had last season they had buys, and
right.
Memphis had a week 9 bye.
They had nothing.
They had to sit there and watch it all play out. And I think it was a weird thing where I think they were in, but no, they weren't necessarily in, but it was like between they could have gotten like second, they could have been like a number 2 seed or have been out of the playoffs. It was a weird scenario they had.
it's going to be fun, and as we get closer, I'm sure Cam and the broadcasters will be able to more eloquently than myself explain the implications for the wins and who needs to lose, especially as the game, like game 1 and game 2 finish. Then we'll see, again, having Tacoma and Lexington, with Lexington's win or lose playing such a large part in the other teams, in or not conversation. Seeing them come later, that's going to be valuable for those that are playing first versus, I don't know, it's going to be, it's like dominoes falling. You're just like in slow motion watching them happen. Anyways,
Well, essentially, what I see, in case anybody is confused by it, if you're Tacoma or a Tacoma fan, you're going to want to win, and you're going to want San Jose and Lincoln to win.
Gotcha. And Ottawa to lose.
Yeah, well, if Lincoln wins, Ottawa loses.
Oh, thank you. Perfect.
So, yeah.
That's how that works, right? Okay. All right. So game 4, the last game of the night. San Jose again being last game. They've been the caboose of these game days more often than, maybe not more often than not, but more often than most other games or other teams, it seems. So San Jose has already clinched a playoff spot with being undefeated so far. Albuquerque, if they win, they're in. If they lose, they need some help with, or they're out. They need some help with Tacoma losing and Lincoln losing, and or Lincoln losing, I think. Do you think San Jose has it in them after a close game? I think last week, with just at nick of time, finishing it out and getting that win at the end. Do you think they have what it takes to go undefeated for this season, Derek?
Like I said before, my team was in the exact same situation last year, and it didn't work out. and if you guys do lose this game, don't get down. There were some people in the locker room last year that got really down about it, and I'm just like, we're a number 1 seed. It just feels like you're on a high, and then that first loss happens, especially guys that it's their first year. That first loss happens, and it's a weird feeling because you're not used to it.
Yeah.
But I will say with this game, I feel like it's either 8-0 or it's a Jordan Sipes record, and I think in which case, I think Daniel has cursed him, because he's either not going to go 8-0 or he's not going to get a record. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think Daniel's cursed him.
Gotcha. And that's it. I mean, so Albuquerque last week went battled and took Lincoln 20-0, and it sounded like there was a fair amount of defensive turnovers with Grimm and Jack Snook and things over there. Johnny, do you think that's going to play a part in San Jose's keeping them from getting that perfect season, or do you think San Jose has what it takes to overcome that, and maybe even just pulls out the win with a kick or a Jordan Sipes touchdown with a minute left in the game?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it is kind of like Derek said, as great as it would be to go undefeated. I mean, regardless, San Jose is in the playoffs. You can go 8-0, still lose in the first round of the playoffs. So you're already there. I think for them, a win or loss, I don't know. For me, going 7-1, 8-0 is still a spectacular season. I think Albuquerque probably steps their game up. Honestly, I'm interested to see Albuquerque win, just to see how all these scenarios play out. I honestly can't wrap my head around all of these. It's going to have to play out and see where the chips fall. But honestly, I think Albuquerque wins and San Jose takes their only loss of the season.
Do you think it'll be an overtime? Imagine that. The last game of the last week of the regular season going into overtime and seeing who wins the flip, and maybe can the other one stop it. That might be the game of, no matter what game would be in the fourth slot here. I feel that might be the game of the week, just because of the implications that, based on that, because if Albuquerque wins, it does affect, if Tacoma wins, they still need Albuquerque to win. So they might be just sitting there chomping at their fingernails, waiting to see what happens. So it may just simply be based on the last game of the last week of the season, making this San Jose versus Albuquerque the game of the week.
Well, I
Or
think sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, or is there another game that stands out to you as a game of the week? But
That's definitely a game of the week for me. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because if Lincoln was to win and Tacoma wins, then San Jose is going to get a lot of new fans in that chat when Tacoma comes in and starts cheering for him. And that was the cool thing that I saw last season, was the last week of the season, all of the people from different teams cheering pretty hard for the team that they needed to win, to get in.
That's funny. So people are going to be, instead of like the 35, 40, 45 people watching the games, that might be like, oh, everybody's just sort of compounding from the first games. Now we got to go watch the second one, or the next games, the one that they need to win. And all of a sudden you're like 115 people are watching these last games. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, any final words from the two of you? From games tomorrow night. We went through. It's been an hour and a half. Thanks for hanging out with us. The rest of both of you and those watching right now. Any final words from the two of you at all?
So I think I've been talking about it a lot this season so far, about the fact that Frankie Custer hasn't gotten a pick this year. I think he gets it this week against Ottawa.
Gotcha.
Count it.
It's just a matter of time, maybe. I don't know. Johnny, anything from you?
No, not really. I'm excited to see all the games tomorrow. I'm fortunate enough to be off work, so I'm going to tune in personally to every single game to watch all these scenarios play out. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited. If anybody wants, I could put these contingency play stuff in the chat. That way people can see some more of it in this way. But yeah, I would remind everybody, I told you I would remind you, next week we've got the Prospect Bowl, West versus East, little battle between down the middle of the country cut in there. Make sure you tune in next week, this same bat channel, same bat time. Should be a lot of fun. But yeah,
one more thing to say, Axel.
Do it.
So a hilarious thing that's going to happen tomorrow is Tacoma needs Lincoln to win, and Lincoln needs Tacoma to lose. So we're going to see Tacoma cheering for Lincoln in the 7:15 game, and then Lincoln cheering against Tacoma in the 9:15 game.
That's going to be beneficial for both of the parties, right?
Oh wait, sorry, I'm wrong.
Okay,
I am wrong. I apologize. It's worded funny.
It's too much to wrap your head around.
It's worded rough, man. I see Lex win, and like, okay, never mind. They're out if Lex wins.
Yeah,
my apologies.
No worries. Yeah, I was again trying to wrap my head around it, because it talks about they're out if that, and like, wait, well then I need to, like, it's like double negatives, and like all of a sudden I'm doing like geometry or algebra, like I don't understand. So carry the one, and no, it should be a lot of fun. Lots of games, lots of implications. Make sure you tune into those. They start 7 Eastern all the way through 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock maybe Eastern. Should be what a night, what a thing to do on a Thursday night if you don't have anything else to do. Even if you do have something else to do, make sure you're there. Don't miss it.
Just watch it anyway.
Exactly.
Just call your friends and say, hey, plans, they're canceled. Watching games tonight.
Tuck your kids in at 6:30. Doesn't matter. Like TV dinners tonight. Woo! All right. Anyways, well, so thank you all for joining us. Any questions, hit us up in the Discord channel. It's great to see Daniel in the chat. Welcome back. I hope you survived. I thought you'd be dead from basketball. I'm glad Now yeah. Anyways, I was going to say something that probably isn't appropriate for here, but that's okay. All right. Anyways, all right. Well, that does it. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow night. All right. Good luck, everybody. Good night.
Goodbye.